was clear too that the state, the Caliphate, his Caliphate, would last until the Mahdi came. But my point is that our Caliphate, with our Muhajirun and our Ansar, was actually really quite exceptional. Remember, not a single caliph was ever assassinated. Only one was killed in battle, and that was, of course, against the invading Nasara. Not a single waziri was ever murdered or even executed. Above all, here there was no civil war, no equivalent to Sunni-Shia divisions. The Gwandu half. After several years in office, often living in Mohammed Bellow's own personal private house, which the colonials, as you may know, were to relabel a palace. The palace used to be a private house. But the Sheikh's Baharaka was specifically mentioned at the time of the jihad by the Gobirawa who tried to fight the Sheikh. They said that they were literally unable to raise their arms against him. It's as if the baraka, his baraka, paralyzed them. But in the 20th century too, the caliph's baraka could be made quite extraordinarily clear. For example, when the second Muslim, Abu Bakr II, came back from the very first time any sultan had made the Umrah, then when he came back, thousands upon thousands came out to welcome him, not just in Sokoto, but in Kano and all along the road. With the caliph back, there could therefore be no Tashin Dun 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 Tashin Dun, no imminent end of the world. I have to admit, I was there at the time, and I was deeply impressed by what I saw. But by contrast, the Sardona, all-powerful though he was, never attracted that same sense of awe, at least not in the Sokoto of my experience. Sultans, the caliph, has something special in that way. My fourth and final point is one that I think underlines how different was the caliphate when it is compared to those other successful West African states that we label as empires. The Caliphate wasn't an empire. Yet, in doing so, also underlined here. You may forget, as a true Sokoto man, I carry a torch. Yet I am trying to underline here the importance of barakah and a sense of nationhood in securing stability, even throughout the Caliphate's colonial period. For the Caliphate was not built upon huge professional armies, nor did the Sheikh himself ever fight. Indeed, in the jihadi Abdullah simply went back after the jihad to writing tafsir and doing administration. Similarly, after the jihad, week after week, the very scholarly Mohammed Bello used to call on the people on his Jama'ah in this town at Friday prayer to come out the next morning with enough food for a 5-day long campaign against the Yanto-Wai, just in the woods just outside of Sokoto. But admittedly, by the mid-19th century, the Second Muslim had created a small professional force of his own, one able to do swift raids at night, and one Second Muslim still later had a private squad of gunmen. And there was always an annual collective autumn or spring raid to be taken out more as a demonstration of political discipline than as a decisive military operation. But the Caliph never himself took either himself or an army outside the immediate Sokoto, Zamfara region. I have 2 minutes left, but given what I heard about 2 minutes last night, it could take an awful long time. Anyway, if such a distant pan-caliphal task was necessary, he delegated it to one of his officials. So what I'm suggesting here is that the core of the Caliphate, though not necessarily its peripheral emirates out on the frontier, was sustained in relative peace by factors other than sheer military force. There were not even major slave revolts. Slave might escape, but a mass rising seems never to have occurred. Indeed, if a major brigand in Hausaland, and there were some, wanted to raise a and in Bauchi, and these suddenly showed what had until then been held in check. In conclusion then, I suggest that the Caliphate as an institution in northern Nigeria is and has been a quite extraordinary phenomenon. It has strengths which we need to understand, not as political scientists, but as Nigerians. For without the Caliphate, I suggest, might never have existed. It would have been more like a northern Ghana, a northern Côte d'Ivoire, even a Burkina or a Mali. So for us all, in celebrating the Caliphate and recognizing its crucial importance, is really a great pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
That was the keynote address delivered by Professor Murray Last from University College London. Next on the agenda of the programs is the first presentation to be made on establishment and the function of caliphal administration. The paper is to be presented by Malam Ibrahim Suleiman from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and Professor Mokhtar Umar Bonza from Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto.
Your Royal Highnesses, esteemed and distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen, because of the change in the program now, His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto, Amirul Mu'mineen, the Chairman and President General of the Nigerian Supreme Council of Islamic Affairs, Jamaat Nasrul Islam, Chairman of the Nigeria Traditional Rulers Council, and so on and so forth, has been named as perhaps one of the most important Islamic religious leaders.
The one and only college. Now you see the problem. Beside power outage, there is also microphone outage. Part of our lives, we are still growing. Now the microphone is back, and I have two. I have two because I wear two turbans. As a traditional leader, as a spiritual leader of Muslims. Maybe that's why they wanted me to use two microphones. As I was saying, we didn't have to use torchlight, which Professor Murray last used. Because when we were growing up, we didn't know what was power outage. There was ECM, things were working very well. We went to Warrior College, and we have to tell you also, there are only two colleges in Nigeria then, I don't know of now, Warrior College and the rest. So if you don't belong to Warrior College, you belong to the others, the rest. And from there, we went into the Nigerian army. And when we were in the army, anything that mattered really mattered. So we don't have to complain about anything. So since, thank God, I don't have to use torchlight. Distinguished Excellencies, most notably the Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, our friend, our brother, our confidant, and our leader of high repute. On behalf of all of us, I would like to welcome you for taking time to be here with us to share this momentous occasion of brotherhood and love with us. The Governor of Sokoto State, his deputy, the chairman of this occasion, Professor Galadanchi, chairman of the organizing committee, my most distinguished brothers, traditional rulers here present from across the country, most notably the chairman, South-South Monarchs Forum, and former GMD of NNPC. Welcome the Vice President, who incidentally is coming here for the first time since he became Vice President. And we're very delighted. They are joining us at this auspicious occasion, and that showed the love, respect, and trust you have in what you have been doing in the last 10 years when you are still a legal officer running your businesses, and now destiny brought you as the second most important Nigerian in our country, as the Vice President. We appreciate your forthrightness, we appreciate your concern for this country's development. We appreciate the support you are giving, Mr. President, because the two of you are supposed to run the country and you are doing just that. We have confidence in what you are doing, and we will continue to support you in all ways and manners to the best of our ability, as much and as long as our religion instructs us to do so. We obey constituted authorities, we work with you. Inshallah, this country will get back to where it's supposed to be, one of the best in the world. So welcome you despite your tight schedule. We know how we were able to bring you here. And I've said you coming here made a very, very big statement for all Nigerians and the rest of the world to know. But I won't say it, I will let you say that yourself. And I want to thank all and sundry who turned up in the last 3 days, most of the traditional leaders across this country who are threefold. One is educated people. Two, taking too much interest in the welfare of our people through health issues. And of course, 3, trying to forge an understanding between all peoples of different tribes and religions of this country, either through the National Council of Traditional Rulers, which I happen to chair, or the Nigerian Religious Council, which I happen to co-chair, and through so many interactive visits I undertook in the last 10 years. And I believe if you had to stretch the miles I have covered, trying to reach out to everybody, not only in Nigeria, but even outside the shores of this country, I'm sure those miles will go around the world many, many more times. But we do so with the sole aim of protecting humanity, protecting ourselves, so that we live in peace with one another and carry out our duties as enshrined in our various holy books. And I want to, in the education sector, I want to inform you of what we have done. You have heard the chairman of the organizing committee mention some books. One of the most important works I think we have carried out was the bringing out of the books our Caliphate leaders wrote on so many issues, so many topics, not only in Islam, even in medicine. But I think the greatest that we needed today is are the books on leadership, which we have made available to so many of you, because we believe without strong leadership. My research paper as a colonel in the Nigerian Army, when I was a participant at National Institute, which the Vice President chairs, which he has a program with them today, incidentally, which he had to postpone to be here. And I keep on saying we thank you, because we can't thank you enough for being here. When I was a participant, my topic of research was on religious extremism as a national security problem. And I didn't know 8-9 months later I would be on this seat. Now some of my journalist friends used to say, well, you did research and you wrote on that topic. Now you are there to practically solve the problems of this religious extremism. And that's what had been pushing me, having known what the problems have been, and still are. We are still deep inside those problems of religious extremism. That will enable us to now forge ahead to see how we can defeat extremism. And extremism is not only known to a particular religion. My research on both Christianity and Islam, and you'll be amazed at what we found out. That was supposed to be presented here because I got permission from my Director General to put it into a book, which I did, and it's been printed and it's been brought here. And in that book that I want to share with you, we commissioned a team of scholars who researched into biographies of the 20 sultans of Sokoto from Ottoman and Fodio, because there are such a large number. Those were presented to the public, and we still ask people, and before the VP leaves, he will pledge what he will do as the Vice President, as an academic, as a lawyer, to facilitate the printing of more of such books, which will send copies to him. So our gathering here today is out of respect for one another, and we must appreciate all of you for giving us that respect, because we know respect begets respect. We respect all, and we have reached out to all. It's now time for you to reach out to us. And you have done so. I can't thank you enough. His Excellency, I will not finish my remarks, even though I don't have time. And you told me you have all the time to listen to me. That's what he told me. You didn't hear that, but he told me. There have been issues affecting our country. This is an opportunity for us to have a rethink or talk about some of those issues. The most important and the most thorny issue is that of security. We have been in about 4 to 5 to 6 years of very serious security threats to our corporate existence as a nation. From the Boko Haram in the northeast to militants blowing up main source of economy, to kidnapping left, right, and center, including even Sokoto, to herdsmen, farmers clashes, which are taking a different new dimension that we don't know before. And in this regard, I'd like to welcome, I don't know whether he's here, Chief Paul Unongo Wantare, leader of the thieves, who have been here in the last 5 days with a 150-man strong thief contingent, dancing and drumming in support of what we are doing, and to show that the Fulanis and thieves are not fighting one another, to show that criminals within the Fulani and Thief people are fighting, are doing bad things, and we as the good people come together to beat those evil ones. And that's the message Paul Unongo had brought. That's what we are working with, and of course we have taken up the challenge. We will physically, personally get involved in all these issues to bring back peace, not only to Benue, other parts of Thief, Fulani areas, but all over this country of ours. Because in any society, you have very, very good people, you have very few bad people. And those very few bad people should not and must not be allowed to be stumbling blocks to our development in this country. We must all rise up together, support the governments at all levels, and see how we can take our country out of these people's hands and have a better society. Issues of kidnapping, you'll be amazed to know why or what some people say about these kidnappings. They link this sorting to economic problems, to injustice by security agencies, and things like that. And of course, you know, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, like a former president of the United States of America said. And I think it's an issue that when we talk of justice, justice must be for all, irrespective of who that person is. If it's against me, according to Islam, it should be said out. I'm not above law, so nobody else should be above law. And when you talk of justice, like Osman Danfodio said, about justice and good governance, he said a country or a nation can endure with unbelief. You can decide not to believe that there is God or whatever. It can endure and become what it is, become the greatest and whatever, but it cannot endure with injustice. That was what Danfodio said over 200 years ago. And we're still seeing such things happening now. So injustice across board had been the bane, had been the problem, had been the main issue that had been bringing all these problems of insecurity in our country. And injustice by leaders at all levels, I think it's a threat to our corporate existence. So political class should please check themselves, come together, have a forum where they will not say, okay, after elections, no more politics. Politics is over. We're now faced with governance. Whoever is elected is the leader of all, whether you belong to the political party or not. Therefore, they should sit together and decide this how this country or this state could move forward, and there will be very strong, vibrant opposition that will tell the ruling class what should be done for a better society. But not this criminal activity can restructure our minds, our hearts. What is wrong with the citizens of a particular state asking their governor, what have you done with the billions or trillions of naira given to you for our state? There's nothing wrong with that. No matter how you will structure, if you still have the same leaders, the problem will still be there. Because they will continue eating and eating and eating and eating alone. And we know what the problem when you eat alone. They say you will die alone. As long as you have the same leadership, within you, you continue to have this problem. Even if you break Nigeria into 1 million pieces, you will still have this problem. So the best thing, the way God Almighty put us together, let's acknowledge that, let's come together, look at the various issues affecting us, because the whole problems are economic. People are hungry, yes, people are hungry. People are sick, people are sick. How do we help them as leaders? That's what we should look at and come up with solutions to these problems as one people. And it's important for us to really know that. We're talking of insecurity and other issues. How do we fight corruption? How do we fight insecurity? I keep on saying, and I won't get tired of saying, we must come together as good people to fight the evil ones. We must work. We must resolve to work extra hard. 10 years is gone. 10 years is a period. That period is gone. It can never come back. Part of our life is gone. We can never have such again. What we need to do now is I've read somewhere, there's no key, there's no lock made without a key. If you see any lock, there's a key somewhere to open it. And it's important for us to know that no matter what situation we find ourselves in, it's a passing phase. It's a challenge to us to rise up and wake up and stop sleeping and work extra hard to have a better society. We can't be lazy and then expect things to go right. Things can never go right for a lazy man. Things can never go right for somebody who is corrupt. Things can never go right with somebody who doesn't have the fear of God in whatever he does. Whether you're a traditional leader, whether you are a political leader, whether you are a spiritual leader, you must imbibe honest truth according to your religion. And that's why we keep on calling on freedom of religion. Let's have freedom of religion. I'm not here to force anybody to accept Islam. Like I used to say, even in America, I'll be the happiest person in the world if the whole world is made up of Muslims. But that's not what God wanted. God said God created us in tribes and nations so that we understand one another, not so that we fight one another. That understanding is what we have here. Because of the understanding we have created between us, we have so many of our brothers from the south, southeast, southwest. People are still coming. People are on the way today. People will be on the way tomorrow. We have our political leaders coming. Because of the understanding we created, we have that free atmosphere to discuss, and we have reached out to all, and people have now reached out to us the more. We want to assure you, we want to resolve, inshallah, we'll work extra hard. We'll go to the extra mile to make sure that we continue doing what we have done in the last 10 years and do much, much more so that this country will belong to the Committee of Nations that we all know we deserve. And I want to conclude my short remarks, very, very short, but it's not in the book. I've told you it's an opportunity for us to have a rethink of what really are the problems. And we're very lucky, we are very honored to have the Vice President here. He's an articulate and very intelligent person. He comprehends issues. Once he hears a word, he knows what to say about it. And I'm sure he's going to say so much, and he's going to take so much back to the Mr. President and brief him. And if we are lucky enough to have the President, even though there won't be time for speeches, this is the only time we can talk and talk, and the VP can talk and talk. Money together. As Mr. President, just wait, let's finish this project. We'll give you the bill. And then gradually the federal government will be paying into their coffers, and they continue development projects across the zone. But instead you hear an airport here in Birnin that hardly sees one flight in 1 year. You have an airport in Dutse, which only airlifts pilgrims. You have an airport in Katrina. You have an airport in Bauchi. You have an airport in Gombeko. You have an airport coming up in Ekiti. You have an airport in Makudi, or in one village in Makudi coming up, and that's a cargo airport. But you have a military base in Makodi, and so you have airports coming up. When the roads which the common man use for his day-to-day activities is so bad. You can imagine if you are traveling from Mina to Abuja, how many hours it will take you. You can imagine if you are traveling from Lokoja to Okene, going to Akure and Ibadan and others, how many hours it will take you. Why can't this money, that's why I'm being very blunt, and I'm glad I think this program is even live, so that there won't be any editing. These are things we have to talk to ourselves. If you don't say the truth, you can't have progress. And I am known to speak the truth because I hear a lot from the common man that keep on saying, Ba Abunchi, Ba Akudi, Ba Menene, Ba Menene. It's our duty to tell our leaders, our political leaders, that these are the things our common men are talking about day in, day out. Please listen to them and do what is right for the sake of doing what is right. So I want to thank His Excellency for coming. And in my conclusion, I would like to propose, Mr. Vice President, is it possible for federal government to convene a national security summit of all stakeholders from the executive at the federal and state levels to the judiciary of the National Assembly, to the traditional and religious leaders of the various 36 states and FCT, to the security agencies leadership, that's from the Chief of Defense Staff to the last one, I think the Civil Defense. I don't know their hierarchy because they are paramilitary, they are not military. There are only three. That's why you hear armed forces and the police. Police is not armed force. So armed forces, Army, Navy, Air Force. That's the one I belong to. And the police. If you have this security summit of stakeholders, very quickly, not jamboree, not to invite 100, 200, 300 people where you cannot discuss. I think it will bring solutions to all the problems of insecurity in this country, from kidnapping to militancy to Boko Haram to harassment, clashes, and whatever. I think if this one is done, I suggested this to former President Goodluck Jonathan, unfortunately it was not done. And I think if we look at it, with the various stakeholders asked to write position papers and send to the Vice President in advance, when they have such papers, they can now say, okay, come. The whole number of people will not be more than 50, 60. And they can sit down for 2 days and analyze these papers and discuss what is the best way out. By the time you listen to the grievances of the common man, you will now find, oh, the whole insecurity problem was due to poor governance, nothing else. And with good governance, we believe things will turn out right. We want to thank all of you for coming for these programs. We pray Almighty take all of us back to our various destinations. And once more, thank you for honoring us. Thank you, the Vice President. God bless all of you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
That has been the President General, Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, Sultan of Sokoto, His Eminence Muhammad Sa'ad Bakr Mustafaj, who delivered a speech, an inspiring speech, which should be considered by all. Next on the agenda is the presentation of paper focusing on the establishment and functioning of Caliphate administration, to be delivered by Malam Ibrahim Suleiman from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and Professor Mokhtar Bunza from Usman Danfodio University, Sokoto.
And saying it as it is. Your Excellency, the Vice President, your other Excellencies, esteemed and distinguished leaders, the traditional institution, the political class, other invitees, His Excellency, Right Honorable Amin Wazir Tambol Matawallan Sokoto is an astute, a remarkable leader whose magnificent tenure as the Right Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives was really legendary. He was a worthy team captain who presided with consensus and consultation. He is now replicating the good attributes of accountable leadership in Sokoto. And I have been reminded that as His Eminence was speaking, the Sultan of Damagaram came into this hall alongside the Emir of Daura. You are welcome to this occasion. My honor and privilege to call upon the host and the superintendent who has made everything possible, the Right Honorable Excellency, the Executive Governor of Sokoto, Matawallan Sokoto, Right Honorable Amin Waziri Tambol.
Amin Waziri Tambol.
Yemi Osibanjo, Professor of Law, Senior Level of Nigeria, GCON.
The Sokoto State Governor Amin Waziri Tambol invited to deliver his address.
Muhammad Saad Abubakar, CFR, MNI, distinguished invited guests, Royal Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. Mr. Vice President, when I came to your office, particularly your residence, I beg your pardon, to request your esteemed and kind presence at this very important symposium. You in private told me how high in esteem you hold His Eminence the Sultan of Sokoto, the good people of Sokoto State, and indeed the Caliphate. By doing what you have done to shelve a meeting billed for 11 o'clock this morning and risk coming to Sokoto for you to dash back for a 3 p.m. meeting later today is a further and clear demonstration of how high you hold His Eminence in esteem, the good people of Sokoto State, and indeed everybody here. We can't thank you enough, Mr. Vice President. You are indeed a special gift to our country at this time. You are a very, very humble, humane, reliable, indefatigable, untiring, and very, very resourceful ally and working partner for Mr. President, President Muhammad Buhari. We thank you very much for always being there for Mr. President and indeed for this country, especially at times such as this. Since your assumption of office as chairman of the National Economic Council, you've been doing very greatly well in ensuring that our economy is brought back to the track. I think, but for once, we have never missed our monthly meeting with you in the National Economic Council. It has never been like that before. We thank you, Mr. Vice President, for coming to Sokoto to celebrate with an unwilling celebrity. We had to cajole, plead, beg His Eminence the Sultan for him to allow us to have this organized in his honor. Mr. Vice President, I'm sure you are convinced as to why we are even in this hall this morning. The first paper presented was by Professor Shehu Galadenchi, not Chairman's remark. The second paper was by Professor Murlast. His Eminence the Sultan delivered the third paper. So you can see why we have to really arrange and organize an intellectual engagement for such an intellectually endowed leader that God has given us. We thank Almighty Allah for the gift of His leadership at this time. Mr. Vice President, you have heard how His Eminence spoke in public. I'm sure you can guess how he talks to me in private. So we have no choice there in Sokoto but to continue to listen to the people and work for the people that have elected us. And that is all that we've been learning all through our lives as citizens of this great caliphate, and we are indeed very proud of that. We are very proud of our background, we are very proud of our history of leadership, not history of rulership, history of consultative leadership. And that is the quality that we have enjoyed in terms of advice and support from His Eminence the Sultan of Sokoto. Your Eminence, we thank you most sincerely for all of the support you've been giving our government here in Sokoto State, and even beyond, for what you've been doing for this great country of ours. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can indeed reward you. Our prayers are always with you. Our support is always there for you. We're available to continue to support you, to continue with this very important task of providing leadership and bridge building across this country of ours. Indeed, Your Eminence, you are not only a bridge builder, but you are the bridge yourself. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Your Excellencies, Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you've listened to the address of His Excellency the Governor. As the Governor rightly noted, His Eminence the Sultan has virtually set the tone for discussions in this symposium. A lot of thought-provoking issues have been raised by His Eminence the Sultan, and that is saying it as it is. The onus is on all of us, but more to the point, the onus is also on the various speakers to key into what His Eminence has given as food for thought to ensure that a change is brought into the art of governance, a change is brought into leadership, and a change is brought in stewardship of public affairs. We are most grateful. As you can see, His Eminence has seen it all. He is at various points. A military officer who has undergone various trainings in administration, in diplomacy, and in several key areas that people never imagined. But that is part of the training. And it is part of the beauty of being an officer and a gentleman. It enabled His Eminence to keep track of what leadership is all about. I hope discussants and paper presenters, our resource persons, will do justice to the issues that have been raised, not only by His Eminence, but indeed all subsequent leaders that may likely speak on the silent issues raised by His Eminence the Sultan. We thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. May I equally, quickly and respectfully acknowledge the Sultan of Damagaram, who has left his domain in Nigeria Republic to be here and contribute to the success of this communication. Allah shi taimake mu martaba, muna kyakkyawan godiya akan wannan karamci da kauna da soyayya da aka nuna ma mai alfarma sarkin musulmi da jama'a Sokoto da Najeriya akan wannan kyakkyawar dangantaka. Muna godiya da fatan Allah zai mai sheka gida lafiya da kai da sauran jama'a da suka zo tare da kai. A wannan masu girma waye na nake farin cikin gayyatar babban bakonmu a wannan biki na yau, wanda mun yi dan canji ne domin kowa ya kai da wannan ofis na mataimakin shugaban kasa yake tare da yana da mutum yana kawo amma ya kawo da wasu abubuwa da wani ya dauka da yanzu an yi wannan hikima ne. Kuma yana da kyau mu nuna jin daɗin da ta shugaban ƙasa muga cewa mun ba shi dama ya yi magana kuma ya koma ya ci gaba da fuskantar wutar cikin manya-manyan abubuwa da ke a daga wannan kasa zai kawo ci gaba da wannan kasa.
We have done a little alteration to our program to accommodate the exigency and the demand on His Excellency the Vice President, so that he could address us and go back to Abuja to attend to other pressing national issues. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, kindly join me to welcome His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as His Excellency has rightly noted, a renowned leader, an approachable leader, a man who keeps track of the thinking of the common man. His Excellency, Professor Ilo Oshibaju.
Thank you very much. Please sit. Permit me to break protocol to recognize the chief celebrant of this day, His Eminence Amirul Mumunin Sultan Muhammadu Saad Abubakar III, MNI CFR. Your Excellency the Governor of Sokoto State, Governor Aminu Waziri Tambuwa, the Matawale of Sokoto, the Deputy Governor of Sokoto State, Your Excellency Ahmed Aliu, members of the National Assembly here present, members of the Federal Executive Council, members of the State House of Assembly, members of the State Executive Council present, His Royal Highness, the Emir of Kano, His Highness Muhammad Sanusi, and Chairman of the Organizing Committee, all our Royal Fathers who are present, the guest speaker, Professor Mauro Last, Your Excellencies of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Your Eminence Amirul Mumunin Sultan Muhammadu Saad Abubakar III, MNI CFR, please accept my sincere felicitations on this auspicious occasion of your 10th year on the exalted throne of your forebears. I also bring special greetings to you from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari. There is every reason, Your Eminence, to celebrate and to be grateful to the Almighty God for His great mercies and grace by which Your Highness is able to witness this day in good health, in good stead, and in good standing with your people and the great people of this nation. Permit me to emphasize the last point, that 10 years into your royal sojourn, you are in good standing with your people and with the Nigerian people. This is not to be taken lightly. The reason is that you have led by strong values. You have worked hard to break down parochial barriers. Your deep friendships with leaders such as John Cardinal Onoyekon and Bishop Matuka and other Christian leaders and leaders of other faiths, locally and internationally, are open expressions of brotherhood across the same fault lines of faiths and ethnicities that many who are called leaders cynically exploit. You have extended great kindness and generosity to so many, regardless of status, recognizing the common humanity and frailties of all. Your reign has witnessed perhaps some of the most challenging times in the history of multi-religious being of this nation. Yet you have handled the challenges with wisdom, with pragmatism, and with graciousness. Your dynamism and magnanimity during such trying times are a clear testament to the excellent ancestral background of this caliphate, a background that has spanned hundreds of years of selfless service and commitment to the development of knowledge and intellect. That illustrious tradition has always recognized that leadership in whatever form is a privilege, and that it is the responsibility of leadership to set the moral and ethical tone of society, to determine the essential values that should guide the leaders and the led. I, as with many others, have been fascinated by the great traditions of values-driven leadership enunciated and practiced by the great founding fathers and leaders of the Sokoto Caliphate, of which Your Royal Highness is a worthy scion. Leaders of the ilk of Sheikh Usmanu bin Fodio, Sheikh Abdullahi bin Fodio, Abdullahi Gwandu, Sheikh Muhammad Bello, and the versatile and courageous Nana Asmau bin Usmanu bin Fodio, and all their disciples. The intellectual endeavors of these leaders have inspired generations of scholars to aspire for deeper understanding of such important areas of knowledge in the field of theology, jurisprudence, legal philosophy, deductive reasoning, etc. The hundreds of books they have written on the subjects of taxation, culture, justice, society, and the general field of governance are as relevant today as they were when they were written. Who can forget? Who can forget the scholarly works of Nana Osmao and her commitment and devotion to education and the empowerment of women? Her team of women teachers, the judges, traversed the length and breadth of Hausaland, teaching women the acts of worship, the art of living, and the importance of spirituality. Sheikh Usman bin Fodio, his brother and his son, have left us with enormous wealth of resources in their writings. As leaders, we cannot but find guidance in the admonition of Sheikh, particularly his book, Usul al-Adl, Principles of Justice, and the work of his brother Abdullah and the son Muhammad Bello on al-Siyasa al-Sharia, the Islamic governance. Abdullah wrote Diya al-Hukam, the light of the rulers, while Bello wrote Al-Gaya al-Wabil fi Sirat al-Imam al-Adil, the life story of a just ruler. The scholars in these works emphasize the need for a ruler to follow the principles of good governance, justice, fairness, empathy, and compassion. Throughout his life as a scholar and as a leader, Sheikh Usman bin Fodio fought against unjust leaders. He fought against vested interests and greed. He fought against extremism. He wrote more than 50 books.
Particular motions on urgent call for caution and clarifications in the Calabar National Integrated Power Project, World Bank Partial Risk Guarantee. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Gololo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Mohamed Gololo, representing the good people of Gama. I'm from Bauchi State. I rise to second the motion as ably moved by Honorable Osad. So second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Secondly, Honorable Gadaka.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, honorable colleagues. I'm Honorable Ismail Ahmed Gadaka, member representing Fika Fune Federal Constituency from Yobe State. I rise to second the motion that we take the motion urgently now. Thank you. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it. Osai, please move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Distinguished honorable colleagues, I remain Honorable Osai Nicholas Osai. I represent Ndoko Okwani Federal Constituency of Delta State. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, the House notes that the signing of the Calabar National Integrated Power Project NIPS World Bank Partial Risk Guarantee between the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, 7 Energy International Limited, World Bank, and Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading PLC is scheduled to hold on Thursday, November 3rd, 2016. Further note, Mr. Speaker, that 7 Energy will be supplying 120 mmsf of gas daily to the Calabar Power Plant owned by NIPS, if there is an operating financial security guaranteed by the World Bank. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, observe that the required partial risk guarantee for gas supply is a critical determinant of a successful 80% privatization by the Niger Delta Power Holding Company of the 10 power plants under it, starting with the Calabar, Gerugu, and Omotosho plants in the first phase of the exercise. Distinguished honorable colleague, further observe that the sales of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company expected to generate over $5.8 billion in revenue to the 3 tiers of government is reported to be critical to unlocking more than 3,000 MW of stranded power from the National Integrated Power Project and increasing Nigerian available power generation to 7,000
of the House of
by
Representatives,
2017.
where members have commenced Thursday's plenary. I am Ignatius Nkwo. You can also watch us live on NTA Parliament channel on 306 Star Times Bouquet.
Electrical powers and auxiliary services from the independent power plant producers and successor generations companies may not be able to discharge the World Bank due diligence standard for more than 4 to 5 months of the operational period. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable colleagues, that this noticeable fear is due to the fact that liquidities in the sector has declined from 85% in 2014 to its present 19%, thereby seriously threatening and limiting MBET ability to breach an eventual call by the World Bank. This stuff, Mr. Speaker, that the weakening power of the Naira is a critical